Hello again, friends and neighbors. In this video I am going to repot an Oncidium Sherry Baby Sweet Fragrance. Now this is a large specimen, and as you can probably tell by the accordion leaves or concertina leaves, it's not staying wet long enough. It's drying out too quickly. So, and as you can see, it's quite large. This particular variety has long, pendulous flower spikes that tend to droop down considerably low below the plant, and it has tons of little flowers, or medium-sized flowers. And I'm going to be up-potting this considerably to a 10-inch plastic Vonda basket. Now the reason I'm putting it in this basket is because during the spring and summer I put it outside, and I actually live in northwest Florida, which is basically lower Alabama. And during the spring, summer, and the beginning part of winter, with autumn, fall, whatever, they can actually stay outside just about all year until middle to late winter, and then they have to come inside. During that time period of being outside, we get lots of rainfall with the occasional drought, which all I have to do is hit them with a water hose. But I want to give it plenty of room to grow. I probably could separate this orchid and turn it into several small ones, but I don't want to do that. I want to leave it all together, and I want it to be one large specimen, because in the logic that I'm using here is that each one of these pseudobulbs stores water and sugars and nutrients and things that the plant needs to use for different stages of growth, and each one aids or adds to the immune system of the plant. So the way I'm thinking is the more of these it has, the stronger, the healthier the plant will eventually be or will become. Now I was going to use nothing but sphagnum moss for this pot, but I don't have enough. So we're going to have to use a bark mix, which is actually a Phalaenopsis orchid mix, in tandem with the moss, which just means I've got another orchid I want to put in one of these baskets too, and I'm going to have to get more moss before I do that. So we're going to take all that moss out of there, and I'm going to use the moss to line the bottom and the sides, to try to act as a barrier to keep the wood chips wet longer, I guess, that because I'm gonna have to put a few wood chips in there around the actual plant itself, and I don't want them directly on the outside of the basket because I'm afraid they'll dry out too quickly. So and then I've got some twine or some cotton thread, or I think it may be nylon thread, that I'll use to actually hang this basket up with, so that I can hang it in there underneath the light, because it's still a little cold, cooler outside than I think this particular orchid would care to be. So I don't want to put it outside just yet. I cannot wait until I can put it outside, because I just know this thing is going to explode when I do. So okay, so we've got bottom lined. Let's try to add a little bit on the sides here, kind of stick it to the sides as best we can without compacting it too much, because the whole point of this basket is to allow airflow, but we want to try to limit the airflow a little bit so that the interior of the basket stays moist a little longer than it normally would if you just use wood chips. Because if I just filled this with wood chips, it would stay wet maybe 30 minutes. or you know, when it's outside, it would stay wet maybe an hour or two. The wind would blow it just completely desiccate it before, you know, the plant really had sufficient time to take up enough water. That's what I'm afraid of happening. So being that I don't have enough moss to fill the entire thing, we'll just use the moss to line it. Let's see where we're at. Plus, the way this orchid is growing, it's actually growing in two different directions. It's and it's being choked out in the pot it's in now. It was probably a little too small when I originally put it in there, but I've had it about a year now. I've had it, and I mean, now That hadn't been that long. Maybe 8 months or so. So I guess that would be about a year, but whatever. And it had flowers on it when I bought it, which is why I bought it, because the flowers were just, oh my god, the smell. It's kind of like, from what, if I remember correctly, it's like a spicy chocolatey kind of smell. It's really, really nice. Okay, so we need to carefully remove it. Oh, well, that was easy enough. And it's got nice, these very small, clingy roots, but they're nice and white. They've actually got nice green growing tips, which is almost impossible for me to show you because they're too small. But it's growing from this direction. So you got a new growth here, there's a new growth here. And it's growing from this direction. There's a new growth here, and there's one down here that kind of got smooshed. There was one in the center, but I actually removed it and put it in another pot by itself. Probably wasn't smart. Probably was not a smart thing to do, because singular pseudobulbs don't really, as I said, you know, each pseudobulb is its only way of storing food and nutrients and that sort of thing, and if you only have a plant with one pseudobulb, then it's not a very strong plant. So I may have made a mistake by removing that offset with only one pseudobulb. But you live and you learn. I still have the rest of the plant, which is doing fantastic. It just needs more room and a slight bit more moisture. Okay, so let's go ahead and start backfilling in between the ball and the moss on the sides. Yeah, I think this is going to work quite well. And this was actually a Phalaenopsis mix of wood chips, and there's some perlite, and I don't think there was any, no, I was going to say there might be some charcoal. It says there's charcoal in here, but I haven't found any yet, so. And what I'm doing is just trying to saturate it. If there's chunky peat, fir bark, charcoal, and then coarse perlite is what this mix has in it. And I'm using Better Grow brand products. It's only because that's what it's at Lowe's, and you know, to be honest, I've used them in the past and they seem to be doing just fine, so I don't see a need to really change the products I'm using. They seem to work okay for me. Whatever you have access to, basically, if you have an orchid that you want to put in a large basket, I would do something similar. Especially if it's an Oncidium, because when they're growing, they are vigorous growers. And this one is trying to grow, but it just didn't quite have enough room in that pot, and it wasn't getting quite enough moisture. So hopefully, by up-potting it to a much larger pot, it will now be able to retain enough moisture, and it will be happy for a longer period of time. And you notice I didn't disturb the old root ball. That's because it wasn't root bound. It wasn't pot bound. It wasn't necessary. The root system was not pot bound. I put it that way. The plant itself had reached the side of the pot, but the roots weren't choking themselves out. So I didn't feel the need to actually disturb them. So that is why I did not. Okay. So I'm gonna go take this to the sink, water it in, which isn't really necessary because you actually do want a nice, you don't want to compact it, and besides what we're using, you're not going to compact it by watering it in the sink, but I just want to give it a good uniform bath to get rid of any of the really small detritus-y kind of stuff that's going to fall out of it, so that when I hang it up, it's not, you know, shedding constantly. And then I will be back and we will put a hanger on this. Okay, so we've given our nice large specimen here a bath. I've got some nylon twine. Now this is, I'm gonna probably need to replace this with metal wire before I go to put it outside. And what I'm gonna do is take and just burn the edge of the wire and pull it very lightly with my fingers to seal the threads on the end of it so it doesn't get all frayed when I'm trying to use it. Now this pot has holes on every other, well, roughly every other corner for you to put hangers on. See if that works. But if you've got these holes here, I'm gonna feed down one side and up the other, just like that. And then I'm gonna do a loop-de-loop, and then I'm gonna do a fisherman's knot, which is, I'm gonna twirl it around. I'm gonna twirl it around and then feed it back through the little hole and then pull it. Oh. And that locks it firmly in place. So what you're looking for is you get one side tied, and what I'm going for is, the plant is not going to get much taller. This is actually fairly mature, this growth here, so that's a fairly nice size. So we want that in, we want to go about there, go a little bit higher. And what I'm going to do is I've got this ring here that I'm going to finish tying this off to so I can then hang it up. But I'm going to give myself a little extra. So it's better to have more than you need than not enough, because you can always take away, but when you're doing something like this, it's hard to add and make it look good. And again, just like I did to begin with, we're going to burn the end, pull it tight. And this is when you're using nylon. Burn the end, heat it up, pull it with your fingers. It cools very quickly, so you're not going to burn yourself. And then it fixes the little frayed edges. Okay, now that we've got all of our strings tied on, we're gonna cut this last one to size. And again, burn the edges, pull it with your fingers. Burn the edges, pull it with your fingers. Now this string is kite string. You can actually get it at most hardware stores, but it's nylon. Now nylon and the sun don't mix very well, so like I said, before I put this outside where it's going to be for the summer, I'm probably going to replace this with metal. Pick this up a little bit. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring our string about where we want it, about to the height we want it. I'm going to go right about here, because remember, this growth here is mature. The plant shouldn't get much taller than that. It's just going to get bigger around. And we're going to pick it up. We want it as level as we can get it. And we're going to come down and tie it together like this. Put the initial knot in it. We're going to try to keep so that it's as level. See, it's not so bad. So we've got our knot in it here, and then we're going to take our big O-ring basically here, and we're going to take it and do kind of like we did with the bottom. Put a loop-de-loop in it, just like that. Right, and try to get it as even as possible, and then I'm going to put my finger there and I'm going to wrap it around at least 3 times, trying to stay above that other knot. We're going to pull it through here, and then we're going to pull it tight. Just like that. So let's go find the spot that we're going to put this in underneath grow lights for now, and then come spring I'll show you where it's going to go outside, and you can follow along and see how well it's doing. So let's go in there to the grow room. All right, and there it is, hanging as close to the lights as I could get it. It's a little low. This isn't the best place to be hanging stuff because it kind of covers up everything behind it. But the whole point is it can get to the light. It has enough light hitting it. It should be getting enough. And then with this large pot hanging out here, it's getting the flow of air in the room. So it'll stay moist longer, but it should still dry out fast enough so it won't cause any rot and or any detriment. But you'll have to wait till the next video, the next update. So we'll see how it's doing. But yeah, so I'm gonna end this one here. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a good day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.